in the car. Look at me. Look at me in the car.
Let's count.
Tay, look at me. Look at me. Look at me. Look at me. Let's count. Let's count. Okay.
4,
5,
3,
4, 3, 2,
Take your hand out of the back.
1.
Take your hand out of the back.
This story came from my biggest fear. During the pandemic, you know, we all had time to sit around and think. And so I was thinking about projects and thinking about, you know, a lot of the stuff that was going on in the media with the unarmed shootings, predominantly of African Americans. And I've always thought about what if it was someone who was like my daughter, for example, who had some type of cognitive issue and was misunderstood. And, you know, one day I just sat down and said, I'm gonna write it out. You know, as scary as it is, I wanted to work on a short film. I'm used to writing feature-length films. I'm used to writing full-length novels, and, you know, writing shorts of anything has terrified me. And so that was a good place to start for me. I went through a lot of emotions. I was proud of myself because it was coming together pretty easily for me at the beginning. But then there came the time where I knew what the end was going to be, and I sat it down, and I think I didn't come back to it for about 2 or 3 days, because I'm also a firm believer in how words have power. And so I really had to pray about it. Like, you know, I don't want to write something that could, you know, like come true, essentially. But I also felt like the message needed to be put out there, so I went back to it. But it felt like it was a message that many people needed to hear. So in 2021, I attempted doing this film. You know, I just think overall the message that I wanted to tell with it wasn't there, but even just down to the character who had to play Taylor, it's kind of hard to sell that, you know, if you're just not some trained actor who's really been doing this for a while. And if you're asking a young child to to portray this, how long could they have been training for this? And so it just didn't convey the way I wanted it to on camera. So for me, I thought about it and I said, really, I should stick my daughter in there. Like, why can't Amari do it? The character calls for headphones anyway, earbuds. Why can't I feed her the lines if she didn't, you know, remember them, for example? So it was something I threw out there kind of jokingly. And then I was like, no, I think we need to really explore this. And so after meeting with Ty and talking through things and my vision, it just made sense to do it over again, do it differently, and really come up with a project that was going to be powerful and impact people in the way I wanted it to.
So I met Portia. We were doing a Full Sail alumni thing on Zoom, and I was in one of the breakout rooms that she was in, and I don't even remember what we spoke about in that breakout room, to be honest with you, but there was definitely a connection there. And so I got a message from her on LinkedIn saying, hey, I got this idea, can I talk to you about it? And I was like, of course can you talk to me about it? Are you kidding me? So we met up at a Starbucks, and she was like, hey, so this is the project that I was working on. What do you think? And I felt so bad, you know, telling her exactly how I felt, but, you know, I was like, I gotta be honest with you, you know, what you described and what we saw are two different things. And so if I could, this is what I would do if I were to piece this together. And so I broke it down as far as like rearranging some of the shots, you know, really focusing on different pieces of the story to really make that impact what she wanted. And she was just in the chair just looking at me like this. Really? That's what you... And I could tell that her wheels were spinning like, okay, I need to do this like this because what he's saying is making a lot of sense. And so I want to say months go by, or, you know, weeks, or I forgot the time frame. And then I get another message saying, hey, so I kind of want to refilm this. What do you think? And I was like, let's do it.
So one of the first things that my director suggested or asked if I was open to when we were talking about the film itself and, you know, some of the characters, you know, one of the first things was, okay, are you open to the fact that the police officer doesn't necessarily have to be white? And I was like, yeah, actually I am. And so, you know, his logic was, you know, do we want the message to get lost in telling this story? And I 100% agreed with that. So at the time, of course, in 2020, where a lot of things were very racially charged, and I was affected in that moment by how I felt, you know, seeing all this happen, I wrote it with a white officer in mind, but at the end of the day, that wasn't what the overall message was. And that's, you know, someone with special needs or and having like a cognitive issue that may not necessarily display, like maybe someone with Down syndrome or something that's usually recognizable. I just wanted to make sure the message got across that this could happen, and no matter what race the officer is, this is a possibility that could be problematic.
So working with Amari was a new challenge for me because I had never worked with anybody with a disability like that, especially in a lead role. But working with Amari, it was a much different challenge because the way that I would approach the scene with with another actor that doesn't have her disability was a lot different. And so it forced me to, one, learn and educate myself on how can I help her and help her to get to where she needs to be in the scene, but also recognize that she's going to respond to things differently and react to things differently, and being able to get that out of her was a huge challenge, but I also think a rewarding one, because again, it encouraged me to learn another way of doing things.
It was a great experience. I know that for the most part, she works well with me. I know what triggers her, so to speak, and what makes her nervous. And so trying to get ahead of that was important to me. So I did a lot of talking to her at home about, hey, this is how the process is going to go. It's pretty simple. You don't really have to do much, but be yourself. I was like, you're going to be in the back of the car looking at your phone, and I was like, that's what you do anyway. And so she laughed, and she's like, okay. Because at first she was nervous, she's like, well, what? You want to be an actor? Like, I don't know what to do. And I was like, it's totally fine. You got this. And so just encouraging her was key for me. What was key about this, and what I think was meant to be, quite frankly, is that I had always written the script with her character wearing earbuds. That was just part of the story for me, and that was what the fixation was going to be for Taylor. And so once I decided to include her, and the fact that she could put on her wireless earbuds, be fed her lines, and quite frankly, no one would know, I was like, wow, this was supposed to happen. And so she did really well with that. And what was crazy was at one point, after take 3, I would start to read a line and I wouldn't even get to the next part. She would finish it. And I was like, okay, so that was, it was a proud mom moment for sure. And, it's just something that we could do together. And I think when she looks back at it, or how it goes, if her friends happen to see it or something like that, she'll really know how meaningful her role was.
For me, being a part of the story was very important, because I literally just come off of a documentary that I did where I was working with a group of disabled people and really understanding what it took to, go from having no access to anything to having some access. The ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act, was put in place to help people in that sense. And so it was a very big eye-opener for me. And then when I got this script, I was like, this is right in line with everything that we spoke about, so I can really, lend, that level of understanding to the story, but also that level of, I don't know everything to the story. And so that's what I really wanted to put into this script, and that's why it resonated with me.
I am hoping for people just to think through this, a bit more, think of this possibility, to question. I think there'll be a lot of questions well, who was wrong? Was anybody wrong? How could this have been prevented? It'll spark conversation. And I think after much conversation could maybe come change, or just something that starts with, bringing awareness to this possibility. And, honestly, there's been some reality, of this, of course, where people have been misunderstood. And I hope that it does draw in emotion. We want tears, I'm not gonna lie. We want tears. But I think when I write anything, the goal is to touch somebody in some way. And I'm hoping that the response is, of course, positive.